Hello, I'm John Furrier here with theCUBE. We are live in Paris for the RAID Summit. It's a two-day event where all the leaders around the world are gathering to talk about the trends in AI and all the enablement, all the startups, the companies that are being built, and of course, the value proposition for customers, and that is also creating a resurgence and a massive growth in wealth creation, and of course, the capital markets are here. Michael Harris, Vice Chair and Global Head of Markets at the New York Stock Exchange, NYSE. Of course, the location of the new CUBE studio on the East Coast connecting Silicon Valley and technology. Michael, great to have you on theCUBE here, NYSE Wired, full team coverage with SiliconANGLE and theCUBE. It's great to see you.
Great to be here, thanks for having me on.
Kim's here, Brian's here, my team's here. It's a real collaboration.
The whole team's here.
Really great collaboration. We're seeing a lot of activity. The organic buzz in the market is hot. We just had the Google CMO on. They're seeing a rise in their business. We're almost in this lift market, it's lifting up. A lot of rising tide, as I say, floating all the boats. What are you seeing out there right now? Because you're seeing the intersection of capital markets, you're seeing a lot of activity, a lot of investment on the private side. What are you seeing in the market right now?
Yeah, sure. I think it's a couple of broad themes that we're seeing overall. In the public market specifically, it's a combination of the secondary markets are trading pretty much near all-time highs, which has been pretty astounding when you think about some of the geopolitical things that have been happening in the background. You also have on the other side of it, public and private investing has been at close to an all-time high. And as a result, you're seeing a lot of private investors that are looking at now getting money taken off the table. You're seeing companies that are looking to bring their public processes forward. And it's kind of the right time to get IPOs done. So you've seen a number of really successful transactions come to the marketplace. But more importantly has been, once these deals come to the market, the performance in the aftermarket has been really, really impressive. And whether it's the IPO market, the follow-on market, the convertible market, all elements of equity capital raising have worked out really well for investors.
Yeah, we're at the midpoint of the year right now, and I have to say it's been kind of an interesting first half. But you look at what's happening now, the market's doing great, all-time highs. You're seeing obviously this wave of innovation hitting every sector. I mean, AI is not just like a tech thing anymore, it's like every sector.
Yeah.
What is the investor sentiment? Because you're starting to see a lot of activity and confidence brewing. What are some of the market moves you're seeing? What's the sentiment of the investor climate? You guys watch that closely. Just what's your take? Because it feels great right now, but what's your view on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think you feel a lot of that right now. The conversations that you're seeing in the hallways are kind of very much focused on this sector, and I think one of the areas that people are really optimistic about is that it's impacting every single industry, every single asset class, and there's nothing that's going to be unaffected by AI. And that's trickling through what we're seeing in terms of some of the themes in the public markets. So pretty much every company that comes to the public markets, there is a theme somewhere about their AI strategy. And there's also an underlying theme about what's going to be the revenue lift, what's going to be the scale impact of having that theme as a part of their overall business. So investors are looking at that, they're looking at how that plays into their own revenue projections and how they think about the growth profiles of these companies. And as a result, you're seeing a lot of very, very optimistic viewpoints as you kind of look at the public markets.
Yeah, we were talking yesterday, we had a chat, we were visiting some cool companies here. You're on a panel, you're moderating. The durability question comes up, and I think investors are trying, I mean, they love AI, who doesn't love AI, but the durability piece is a big part of it. I mean, that's something that you guys take great care of at the NYSE to make sure that those kinds of investments go public, and you're starting to see the business models change with AI. I mean, I don't really want to get into the whole job loss thing, because I poo-pooed that many times, and in fact debunked it because more jobs are created. But tech is now integrated in all aspects of every company. There used to be a joke of, everyone's a tech company, everyone's a data company, right? So you're starting to see this kind of normality around technology being embedded in the fabric of all companies. So are you seeing a resurgence of that tech wave? I mean, we already see tech stocks doing great on the market. But the resurgence of tech in companies, is that changed the makeup of the pre-IPOs, the sort of comeback in the IPO market? Is it the productivity? What are you seeing as this resurgence?
Yeah, we're seeing some of that. And if you look at some of the best performing IPOs of this year, they've been, not surprisingly, in the tech sector. So a great example of that is Circle, for instance. Best performing IPO of 2025. a story where I think probably a year ago, a lot of people didn't necessarily understand the underlying business or understand the underlying company, but you've seen a huge buy-in from institutional investors, retail investors, and also from a regulatory standpoint, there's a lot of great momentum in their business. So those kind of stories, those underlying themes are really what's driving a lot of it.
The Circle's a great example. I'm glad you pointed that out because that's not on the radar, wasn't on the bingo card 2 years ago.
For sure.
So that's a great sign that there's kind of a new era coming. Is there traits that you see out there, just from your experience and kind of what's happening now that of companies that go public? The bar used to be, is very high. I mean, going public is a process.
Right.
You guys are experts at that. What traits do you see in companies that are pre-IPO that are going to go public? Has it changed? Is the game still the same?
No, for sure. I mean, look, you mentioned earlier, the idea of durability. That's something that public investors are really focused on, and it's always, I think, a trade-off between scale, growth, and profitability, right? And I think for every company, it's going to be a little bit of a different mix of those three, but ultimately, from a public standpoint, investors want to make sure that these companies are going to be around for a long time, they're going to be great growth businesses, and there's going to be companies that are also going to be unique in their own space. And so that profile is really what public investors are going to look at, and every company is going to be a little bit different, but what you're seeing with a lot of companies that are kind of coming public now, they kind of hit all the marks.
You know, Mike, I got to say from a personal perspective, at the exchange now with theCUBE and partnering with Brian and the team, and creating NYSE Wired and seeing the growth of Wired and hearing Lynn Martin speak at some of these bell ceremonies, because you guys do a great bell ceremony and then they ring the opening bell. I've heard the conversation, the NYSE's prestigious, high quality center of capitalism. Now the digital world is coming together, and the durability's in play, the new kinds of IPOs. What excites you these days? Because the NYSE is the center of capitalism. It's an iconic brand, a lot of action happening. What are you excited about as you're running the day-to-day, you got the keys to the kingdom? What's exciting you these days at the NYSE?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think top of mind is obviously what we're seeing in the markets, right? So I think we're going to see a very, very active back half of the year for IPOs. I think that's going to carry through to what happens next year. So I think we're very excited about that. Second part is I think there's going to be some interesting things that we're working on in the private markets. So we're looking at hopefully making some strides in that area as well. And then also, as you kind of think about where a lot of companies that are domiciled here in Europe, how they're thinking about their own processes, you're seeing a combination of companies that are public, that are thinking about possibly re-domiciling in the US, or possibly listing in the US, and then at the same time, great growth companies in Europe that are also thinking about going public in the US. And so we are looking forward to having all those conversations.
So you see an in-migration into the US to get that capital markets kind of domicile? Is that the driver?
It's really continued momentum. That's something that's been in place for a while. You've seen great companies like Flutter and others, CRH, that have also re-domiciled from their operations overseas here in Europe to the US, and we see that momentum continuing.
It makes total sense. Talk about the private. I want to real quick go back to the private thing, because I think there's a lot of private activity. Obviously we cover startups like a blanket. They stay private longer, they raise money, so you have that kind of pre-IPO capital market dynamic of raising what used to be an IPO raise. What's going on in the privates? Can you share any kind of momentum there and some things you're seeing on the private side?
Not quite yet. We're still working on we're still working on a couple of things, but I'd suffice it to say I think we've always been very innovative in terms of ways that companies can try to raise capital for their stakeholders. Direct listings being a great example of that. We did that for Spotify several years ago, and I think we're always going to be at the forefront of trying to help companies try to achieve the best things for their stakeholders.
He's keeping it close to the vest here. Public companies, private companies. Great action in the capital markets. Michael, thank you so much for coming on theCUBE.
Thanks a lot, I really appreciate you having me.
Yeah, it's awesome. The intersection of the capital markets and growth is coming together. Public, private, international, coming into the US capital markets. It's a global economy. Of course, we are here globally with theCUBE, NYSE Wired here in Paris for theCUBE and the Raise Summit. Thanks for watching.